Welcome, everyone, to another episode or podcast of Conversations with Anne Marie. My name is Anne Marie of the Art of Healing. I am a channeler, a healer, light worker, whatever you want to call it. And I am not alone in this journey of bringing light onto this planet. I was fortunate enough to meet a soul sister, one of those people where immediately when you're in their presence, you see yourself and you just love them and want them to be your best friend forever. I mean, and this is how I felt with this particular woman. Her name is Sonia Walton. And I am so pleased to have a conversation, a real conversation about what it's like to want desperately to be in the new earth, but we're still struggling here as this third dimension just won't let us go. So now I introduce to you my dear friend, Sonia Walton, in this next episode of Conversations with Anne Marie. Let's start.
Yeah, let's start. Okay. Heavenly Father, Holy Mother, we join in oneness with you now, in oneness with each other, in oneness with our guides and teachers, in oneness with every being who is going to join us in watching this recording. Our heart is your heart. Our desire is your desire. Our words are your words. And all that arises through us is your manifestation, drawing us to you, drawing us deeper into that oneness with you. We offer ourselves to you for your purpose. We ask that you animate us, that you bring to completion through us that which you desire.
Meo seshwahetia kuruturuma. Emia hesesho yakuatia matereke. Impere hesesho. Kaima erwatara. Mimia heturu susho. Akutereweya. Marhetereseye. Kuyama uturuye. Mayu sesho hayama. Kure tereke sushmaya tere. Empia tereke sushayamaya. Kuma hetere wasasho. Kuya sesho hayamate. Empere maya sesho waya. Empere maya sesho waya. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Look at you. So beautiful. This is why I just don't want to let you go.
I know we have such a deep connection.
We do, don't we? We do. It's quite beautiful.
Yeah. You know, I was just thinking, I was just sitting here and just before our meeting time. And I was remembering back to a couple months ago when we first talked about doing this video. And I remember being so charged and excited and just feeling divinity at work, feeling that divine intelligence, creating something through us. And I remember thinking to myself, well, I don't know what I would say. I don't know what I would talk about. And then after having that thought, I went and I sat in my bed and I just decided to meditate. And I just got this huge download that filled half my notebook. And I went back to that download before our meeting, and I was reading through it, and I thought to myself, wow, what an altered state of consciousness I was in compared to where I am feeling myself right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost to the point of, when it came through, it felt so powerful and it felt so good in my body. Mm. And it made so much sense. And I felt so much joy and connection with Source when I was getting this download. And then, as you and I talked about earlier today, I just feel such a huge gap between that state of consciousness that I was in when I received that and that what I'm sitting in right now within my own body. Mm-hmm. And I was just, and I thought to myself, again, it was that same question. What am I going to talk about? Mm-hmm. How can I bring anything to the table worthwhile from what I'm experiencing in life right now? And all I can say is that the willingness is there. And there is so much that I want to express that I just don't quite know where to begin. But I think I do know where I want to begin. I want to begin in this place where we have these experiences, where we have different states of consciousness that we go in and out of.
Yes.
And one is not more valuable than the other. Because what I'm feeling right now today is this huge excavation within my body, within my energy, within my spirit, where there is deep, heavy movement. Mm-hmm. And it feels like that density that I feel encapsulated in mm-hmm. is just moving, is clearing space. And I know that that's what it is. It doesn't feel good.
No, it doesn't. Usually, change doesn't feel good. And what is difficult for people such as ourselves is that when we tap into that fifth dimension, when we tap into that love dimension, especially that source dimension, and we're there and it feels so good, and then we're out of it. Yeah. We're not there anymore.
Yeah.
And we have to deal with this dimension that doesn't want us to get away, that doesn't want us to ascend. We are in a matrix that doesn't want us to leave, and it is struggling and making our lives as difficult as possible so that we remain in this density so that they can continue to feed off of us. So just to back up a little bit and put it in a context for our viewers, Sonia, you are a channel, a healer, and a divine light being, divine feminine being. So tell us a little bit about your current struggles, because this is why I do what I do. And this is why I reach out to people such as yourselves, because if you and I go through struggle, everyone is going through struggle, and we all need to hear from the mouths of people how we are coping and how we are moving through and ascending. So briefly, I'd like you to, just introduce yourself again. And I want you to also tap into, and you and I had a conversation earlier about what the universe does, this downward cycle. I think it's very important and relevant. So tell us a little bit.
Well, I'm Sonia Walton, and oh my gosh, where do I begin? I have a background in science. I have a degree in biochemistry. I did stem cell research for 15 years, and I did a lot of genetic mutations. I did a lot of animal experimentation. I did a lot of studying of human disease process and learning the underlying disease pathways and how to cure those through genetic manipulation, through protein manipulation.
Wow.
So I have, which I came to realize that, there's with me, there's a strong Atlantean connection. And as it turns out, I have this is where it gets so woo-woo, but this is the truth of my reality. This is the truth of my experience. One of my primary guides is named Aten Ra. And Aten Ra, when I first met him and he introduced himself and he proposed that I channel him, he explained to me that there was a time before the current human race, as we know it, in which we were involved in the generation of the modern human on Earth, where we genetically modified pre-existing Homo sapiens, and we did it for the specific purpose of being able to hold a vibration that could communicate with Ra, that could communicate with higher level beings.
Would you believe my heart? I'm gonna cry right now. I just got such a deep connection to what you just said.
Yeah. So there was a very well calculated, very thought out plan in order to assist in the ability of humans to hold higher vibrations, specifically certain divine qualities that wanted to be expressed in form.
So would this be after the Anunnaki experiment with humanity?
I would be more of a parallel. So it would be about that same timeline.
Okay.
But there were multiple groups that were creating genetic lines specifically for their group.
Got it. All these experiments we hear about. Got it.
Yeah. And well, the reason why we call them experiments is because they hadn't been done before. So it's not an experiment in terms of the way that we see it. We created the beings that we wanted to incarnate into. So it wasn't a free-for-all or, heartless thing. It was something very specific with a very refined goal in mind. And it was a very long-term thing. So, but Aten Ra and I were involved in that. And then we incarnated into the first generation of the Earth humans that we created. And we did that because as like a kind of a test run.
Correct.
So there's a lot of technology all around the Earth that was designed to work with the genetics of the advanced Homo sapiens that were created. Ascension technology, so to speak, but they were specifically designed for specific genetic codes to create a vibration that would activate those genetic lines. that technology is no longer active. And so the genetic codes are still present. Okay. So they're still there in potential. But so it didn't surprise me. I actually kind of chuckled a little bit to learn that I had been involved in the genetic manipulations many, many lifetimes ago. And then in this lifetime, I'm doing something very, very similar.
Very similar.
So Aten Ra, when I first began channeling, I actually wanted, I've told this before, but I actually wanted to channel Jesus. I wasn't interested in channeling anyone except Jesus. And so when he introduced himself and proposed that I channel him, it wasn't I was very hesitant. I didn't know who he was. It was a disappointment to me that Jesus didn't come forward. And Jesus didn't come forward for quite some time, actually. But I began channeling him, and through this relationship with him, I've come to really cherish him. He's an incredibly joyful and kind and loving and insightful and wise being, who is also very playful and quite a character. Mm. So I've come to really enjoy him, and I do channel him when he wants to come through or when he's requested. I do. I don't do anything. This is the thing. People ask me, what do I do? And it's different every single time. I do have counseling. I do hold what I call sessions, where I have clients that come to me, and I will go into that altered state of consciousness and be able to bring forth answers, sometimes bring forth healing, sometimes bring forth wisdom and information, but I don't actually, it's different every single time. Mm-hmm. So it's very hard to say, what I do, so to speak, but mostly, my spiritual life has taken on this, where this experience of getting a lot of information that will come through in a download form. And then my life goes into this phase where I have to begin to integrate that information into all my consciousness, not just my altered state of consciousness. Mm-hmm. And so while I do channel and I do heal when that comes through me, that's not really what my life is. Mm-hmm. That's like the most beautiful part of my life. Mm-hmm. But the majority of my life is getting that information and then spirit taking me where I need to go to integrate that information into all the different layers and levels. Mm-hmm. And so I think, if I were to describe myself, it would be very difficult. I would just say I am a divine being having a human experience and learning a lot from contrast.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah. And
contrast is what we are all wallowing in right now. We are just all wallowing in this. And the only way I can describe it is that the density doesn't want to let us go. It's fighting with us. It's grabbing us by the ankles, and it's like, no, you're not going anywhere. I'm going to remind you of all this. I'm going to remind you of where you really are, and let me put you in this illusion again, Yeah. So we're in the Maya, we're in the illusion right now. And getting back to what you were talking about earlier, you were expressing how dense it is for you at this moment. And I want to first just say thank you for being present and available to discuss these issues. This is not pretty. Ascension is not pretty. Ascension and creating this new earth is is dirty, hard work.
It's so funny because I remember seeing these pictures of people meditating, and they're all these peaceful, and they had their hands on their knees, and they had this beatific expression on their face, meditating. That is not what my meditations look like. My meditations look like, tears streaming. It is different for all of us, but that has been more my experience of my awakening, has just been this roller coaster ride. And when I was in the shower, Aten Ra was talking to me about consciousness, and he's like, because he always tries to coach me and bring some kind of rational thought process to my experience. And that's what he's been trying to do all day is try to, he throws in these little nuggets of wisdom. And what he was telling me when I was in the shower, he's like, consciousness is a wave riding a wave. And he said, and the wave that your consciousness is riding goes like this, up and down and up and down and up and down, because that's what a wave does. It goes up and down. And he said, you spend a little bit of time here at the crest at the top. He said, but you're going to come down. He said, if you try to hold yourself here at the crest, you're going to miss all that you gain through the ups and the downs. And he said, you're not going to evolve and expand from just staying here at the top. And so, and I was like, well, okay. Thank you for that. It still doesn't feel good. It still doesn't feel good. Of
course not. And I mean, we have had, I think, both times in our lives where our wave has been relatively smooth.
Yes.
So yeah, we have both experienced that. And then there are times where it just goes boom, like we have an earthquake, that S wave just goes. Like
yes,
that.
Exactly.
And everything feels like that's it. I'm never going back. It's the end of the road. We're just doomed to torment for the rest of our lives.
Spirit, like I'm human. There is nothing else but this frailty and this limitation and this scarcity and this lack, and it just seems so far. It just seems like there is such a huge gap between our humanity and our divinity, and when you're in that fullness of your humanity, it seems impossible to close that gap and to access your divinity. And I was in the car today driving, and I'm like, I need you to show up for me. And I don't know what else I can do.
I just had like a little thing come into my head when you were talking about how we are so distant from our divinity.
It feels like it. Oh, it feels like it.
But our divinity is here.
Yeah.
We carry it with us all the time. It's not far.
The trick is, how do you access it when you are in those deep states of density?
Yeah.
When you really are, because it's perception, right? The illusion is not our experience. Our illusion is how we experience it. We experience life from an extremely narrow perspective.
Right.
And it is not the totality of experience. It is not the totality of truth. It's this teeny tiny sliver, and it doesn't mean that our truth isn't true.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that our experience isn't true. It just means that it's limited.
Right. So what is it now? You and I, we have some things in common. We both are taking care of our parents.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And you just started a new job
Mm-hmm.
that is placing a great deal of physical stress, time stress
Yes.
on you. So let's have a conversation a little bit about that, about this whole matrix, and about trying to make ends meet in the system, and how this is taking its toll on you.
Yeah. This brings me back up to something else that Ajahn Ra was telling me. And, while I'm brushing my teeth, he gets his words in whenever he can, right? He told me, he said that the human race, our consciousness, is experiencing the God we created without love. So one of the blessings of having a physical incarnation is that we get to experience divine qualities and their effects. We get to experience them in relationship with each other, and we get to experience them individually, and we get to experience the absence of them.
Mm-hmm.
And in the reality that we are experiencing now, we have manifested a God from our narcissism. And that God, you can call the New World Order. You could call that God the social economic system. You could call that God the government. You could call that God society at large, right?
Commercialism,
all of these things.
Right.
It's essentially, we have created an entity that has power,
Yep.
that has knowledge, that can be everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
that can see all things,
Mm-hmm.
that can hear all things, right? We have all these monitoring systems. We have all of these things. We have created, through giving our power away, through externalizing our power, we have created a God without love. And we are having the experience of that God. We have created a narcissist that is literally feeding off of us individually.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, it has captured us. It has roped us in. We are energetically bound. We have to carry out this sentence of giving our time, our energy to survive, instead of living from our deepest potential and our deepest desires. And there is a very good reason why we are having this experience. And Aten was telling me, he's like, be careful of the God you worship, because the God that you believe in, the God that you give your power to, is the God that will show up.
Mm-hmm.
And so throughout my life, I have always perceived myself as being very limited in power, being very limited in ability and capability, being very flawed and lacking.
Mm-hmm.
I've been captured by scarcity. I've been captured, and it's all, it essentially what it is I am currently experiencing the effects of years of not owning my own divine nature.
Mm-hmm.
And it's where my consciousness is now. It's extremely uncomfortable. It's very much out of alignment.
Yeah. So my question is, what are you forgetting about yourself?
Well, so here's the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can have all this spiritual knowledge. I can get all these downloads.
Mm-hmm.
It's the integration
That's right.
of it.
That's right.
And my life is, the circumstances of my life are challenging me. It's challenging the divinity within me.
Right.
To rise to the occasion.
Correct.
And this is often what happens,
Mm-hmm.
is that in order for us to integrate these divine qualities that are our inheritance, that are our divine nature, but yet still exist in potential rather than in living reality, we are placed in these situations through this higher intelligence in which the divinity has to rise to meet the occasion.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am in a situation where I am struggling physically, and I am struggling to stay, I'm struggling to access that sense of power and empowerment, because that's not what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
The truth of my experience is strife and striving.
Mm-hmm.
And what that's doing is it's creating so much discomfort within me. It feels so out of alignment with my nature that it's creating this cry within me for my divine nature to show up. I am asking it to show up for me. Okay, divinity within me, where are you?
Mm-hmm.
I need you now.
Mm-hmm.
I hear all about you. I've experienced you, but where are you in this? I need you in this.
Mm-hmm.
And so what it's doing is it's creating this amalgamation of densities where you have that which we have created imperfectly without love, calling within me. I'm having this experience, right? Because it's within us that the transmutation occurs. It's through us, within us. So within me is this cry for my divinity to show up.
Yeah.
And so divinity then has to show up. And that is that process of integration. That's what happens when you integrate it. It's not enough to know it when you're in this elevated state of consciousness, because you come right out of that. You're at the tip of the wave. Well, that's a very little bit of time that you actually spend at that tip of that wave. The rest of our lives we spend on the downs and then the comings back up. And it seems sometimes like a lot more time at the bottom, right? So we are the means by which source is bringing unification between the densities. There is a connection between the high and the low, and we are that connection. We are the means by which the divinity, that which is created with love, comes together with that which was created without love. And they are brought together into relationship through us. And it is experience that is the first step in that transmutation. This first step in the process, which what I'm describing here is the same process as forgiveness. Forgiveness is just another word for what we're talking about.
Right.
It's the bringing together of that which was created in separation with that which is created in oneness. And to bring those two together, it requires experience. It requires specifically experience in human form.
Correct.
And we are the means by which source is bringing relationship between that which is unwanted and that which is wanted.
Right.
Right? The polarities. We're the space holders for that. We are the ones through which both polarities can be held together. It's actually a very unique design that, what we call mankind was designed specifically for, was to have these vast array of experiences going across huge disparity of vibrations. Think about the different levels of vibration that you have experienced in your life. The deepest, densest, and the highest, most beautiful, most elevated and light and bright, right? We're capable of having all of that experience and everything in between.
Right.
That's a very unique capability.
Right.
That what Aten Ra calls mankind was specifically designed for. And the reason is through having these experiences of such disparity in vibration, yet holding those disparities together within one being is the means by which source unifies that which was created in separation with that which was created in oneness. And through that relationship between separation and oneness, source gets to experience all of its divine qualities. And that ultimately is the purpose of incarnating.
Right.
Is to provide, as an aspect of source, to be creator and creation together as one being.
Wow.
To be evil and loving together as one being, and creating relationship so that love can flow from oneness to separation. Bringing all of creation into the oneness so that God can fulfill his desire and his intention, which is, I am all that is. We are the means by which that is taking place. So where I am now is in the depths of that.
Yeah.
And it's not the totality of me, but it's the truth of my experience. And I'm experiencing it because I'm, number one, it's what I was designed to do. It's my purpose. It's my function here, is to have these experiences of that which was created imperfectly without love. And through my experience of it, I am informed. Not only am I informed that I am not okay with this, I'm informed that I want something different.
Right.
What I want is my divinity. What I want is what is created perfectly with love. And I want those things not because there's a God to please. I want those things because that's my nature.
The God to please is us.
Exactly. The God. Well,
that's what I take from that. The God to please is the God within us. The God within us that knows our perfection and sees the imperfection that we currently dwell in. And this is where we bonded originally, that we understand our perfection and we feel that perfection within us, glimpses of it. whole days of it where we walk around and we know who we truly are. And then something happens and we, in our case, in my case, I look in the mirror. I look in the mirror and I'm like, aha, what cruel joke is this? And, that's where we are.
Yeah.
That's where we are.
But it's a very important point to note, right? A child wants to play because it's in the child's nature to play.
Here we are.
A bird wants to fly because it's the bird's nature to fly. We want perfection because perfection is our nature. We want limitlessness because limitlessness is our nature. Right. We want love because love is our nature. And we are in an environment that is a manifestation of separation, a manifestation of narcissism. Mm-hmm. We are not in our home. No. We are not embodying our nature, and it feels so bad. And, but there is a reason for it. Mm-hmm. And it is because from the thought of separation, there was a whole line of creation that came from that thought. Mm-hmm. And there was a whole line of creation that came from the desire of God for oneness.
Right.
And those of us that were born from the thought of oneness, from God's desire for oneness, have a nature that, when put into an environment of separation, does not feel okay with us.
Yeah. I mean, that's where we are collectively. Yeah. We are all in that realization that this is just wrong.
This is not okay.
This is not okay.
Yeah. This is not okay.
It's not okay to be on the hamster wheel. It is not okay to be dissatisfied.
To deteriorate. Yeah. It's not okay to deteriorate.
To deteriorate.
That's the opposite of what we're supposed to experience. But see, here's this other quandary, right? Because on one hand, it's not okay. And on the other hand, it's exactly as it should be. Mm-hmm. And I said, how can something not be okay, but be as it should be? How can those both exist? And the reason is that one is it's a catalyzing experience. Mm-hmm. It's it's as it should be because it is the perfect means by which we get to use informed free will decision. I want my divinity. I want my divinity. I have been fully informed as to the alternative.
There are all these crows flying outside my window right now.
Wow.
Like thousands of them. I think Ra is with us. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I think they're here. Ra is with us. Yeah. Well, I mean, we have choices to make, though, Sonia. We have conscious choices that we can make. And this is the crux of it, I think. Where do we make these conscious choices, and where do we put our participation? Right. Can we withdraw from areas and insert into others? And I think that's where our human nature is boggling up our divine nature. Mm-hmm. Because our human nature wants us to not have the programming we've received from our human nature, from that which is unloving, is telling us that we need to suffer and stick it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we have to feed the wheel. We have to feed the system with our energy.
Exactly. So that is the one program that is running underneath in our hardware. Let's put it that way. But then we do have the conscious choice. We do have the ability to, yes, say, okay, I don't want to play anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. Okay. I want to bring to me enough abundance. I want to bring to me a peace of mind. I want to bring to me a state of love so I can dwell within that state of love.
Yeah.
For as much and as long as I possibly can. It's not that everything is going to be completely, rainbows and clouds and hearts and whatever. But those times that bring us into the Maya, we're able to tolerate them.
Yeah. Yeah. There is a state of being in which you can ride those waves.
Mm-hmm.
And as you are fully feeling and experiencing your humanity, you are simultaneously fully experiencing your divinity.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually had a brief period of time that where I was in the lowest, so much pain.
Mm-hmm.
And right alongside that pain was peace, a certainty. It didn't last very long. I lost that too. But the thing is, I have had that experience. And that is a potential that we're all moving towards.
Right.
But here's the thing about the situation that we're in on this planet right now. Most of us have had enough experience of contrast where we can say, I am fully informed that this is not what I want.
Right.
That I want something else, right? So we have come to a place where we are aware of a preference, a distinct, natural, automatic preference for that which is created perfectly with love, right? So at this point in time, for most of us, the gap between our experience that we're having and the experience that we want to have is going to require that we cultivate our divine nature within us.
Correct.
Very specifically, there are two things that we have to cultivate. The first is self-awareness. Self-awareness is the gateway to all divine qualities.
Yeah.
Without self-awareness, you are locked in determinism. That is, you cannot make choices beyond your own programming.
Yes.
Until you have self-awareness, right? Self-awareness is something that comes to us by divine grace. It comes when our consciousness has had enough experience to be prepared for light to be received. Aten Ra calls it insemination by light. So once our consciousness has been inseminated with light, then self-awareness is the first thing that evolves from that amalgamation between the consciousness of a sleeper, right, and the light that comes in. Those things create conscious awareness. From conscious awareness, you have now access to the first divine quality that comes available to us. And it's not power, and it's not love, and it's not wisdom. It's free will.
I was just thinking it's choice.
It's choice.
It's choice.
Yeah.
And that's, getting the ability to take a step back and say, wait a minute, I don't have to choose what is offered me. And this is something that a lot of humanity are really struggling with, because they are only understanding that there is choice A and choice B. They don't have the conscious awareness to say, wait a minute, I can create a choice that's not given to me.
Exactly.
I can, through my creative nature, my true God self, the creative source that I am, I can create a new alternative.
Exactly.
I can create a new alternative to anything, to any choice, to any decision, great or small.
And even that awareness comes as an effect from consciously choosing love.
Yeah.
Because we don't actually, to say to a person, God is within you.
Mm-hmm.
To someone who has no experience or context for that,
Mm-hmm.
is really not helpful.
No.
When we first awaken, when we first begin to develop conscious awareness, we really only have access to free will through one choice.
Mm-hmm.
We really only have free will in one way at that level, and that is the choice between love and unlike love.
Mm-hmm.
And as we use our free will to choose love, not only does our conscious awareness grow, but our access to other divine qualities grows as well. Because it's love is the unifying power, the unifying force that emanates from source to unite source with all aspects of source. And so when we begin to choose love, we're choosing that unifying factor, which brings with it the other divine qualities.
Right.
And so, it goes back to A Course in Miracles, 101, which is, it's always a choice between that which is love and that which is unlike love.
Mm-hmm.
And it's through that informed decision. I want love. I want power with love, right? What we're experiencing nowadays is the manifestation of a God without love. So we have created an entity that's powerful, but not loving. An entity that's that's everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
but not loving.
Omnipresent. Mm-hmm.
Right? A being that listens to all of our conversations and knows everything about it. So it's all knowing, right? But not loving.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a narcissistic God. And we have, as humans, we have had centuries, millennia of time to develop divine qualities in the absence of love. Think about human history. Think about how we have tried to gain power for ourselves in the absence of love. We've tried to attain abundance in the absence of love, and we have been successful, but in a limited way, right? Mm-hmm. That is one road. That is one way that we can learn about ourselves. That is one way that we can manifest. However, it is extremely limited. In the absence of love, the divine qualities are very, very limited to us. Mm-hmm. That is why this world is so hard.
I want to bring up just one little point before, because it's been rolling around in the back of my head. Choosing love is easier said than done, because a lot of us don't even understand what love is. A lot of us don't even understand what a loving choice in a situation could possibly be. Okay. And what I want to bring forth in this is that to be in a position where you can't see any way out you have to step back and figure out what you truly have control over. And I think that's a really big point for humanity to look at right now, because they're not given options. And that's the big fallacy. No, you have no choice. But the truth is that you do have choices, and you are given, you're just not used to looking at what you truly are in control of, because everything has been taken, all control has been taken away from the individual, or they're trying to take the control away from the individual. But we need to sit back and take stock of what it is that we have true control over. And it goes all the way to the heart of the onion. Mm-hmm. It really does. Because we can think about externally, what are we in control over? If we're in a job, we are in control of time outside of that job. If we are, whatever it might be, we got to focus in on what we truly have control over, what our choices mean. I mean, for me, that is enormous. That's an enormous tool in an enormous aha. Mm-hmm. Wow, I have a choice. I have more than one choice. And then you feel like you're somewhat in control of your situation. I mean, that is something that has been rumbling around in the back of my.
No, it's a very, very good point, because one of the things that as a collective we really struggle with is disempowerment, is lack of control, and power and control is are divine qualities.
That's right.
That we have separated ourselves from. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I'm experiencing in my life, which is the same thing that everyone I think is experiencing, is that there is only one way out. There is only, and that is to develop your free will, to develop your self-awareness so that you have access to something beyond the human, the limited human experience. And everything in this world is creating a situation in which either you access your divinity, the cry within comes to life, and it goes forth and it calls to your divinity to show up, or you go the way of the world. And you become assimilated into this unloving entity, this God created without love. Right. And our choice now is to choose between the God we created without love, that we have given all of our power to, or the God of love within us. That is the choice that we are all being confronted with on a daily basis, over and over and over again, because it is the eye of the needle that we have been given for this age, this time. The eye of the needle is accessing your divinity, accessing free will, accessing conscious awareness. That's the only way that you're going to be able to navigate safely through these times. And when I say safely, I don't mean comfortably. Not necessarily happily. But you're going to learn, you're going to have the opportunity to witness your divinity showing up for you. Your divinity, meaning the divinity within you, meaning the divinity all around you. And that is what is the beauty and the ugly of this world at this time. Right. And, I am feeling my humanness so deeply right now. I am feeling that vulnerability and that scarcity and that lack so deeply right now. And the thing about divinity is that the means always meets the occasion. So when we are having these really difficult experiences, there's something that wants to come through powerfully, just as powerfully, more powerfully. I was watching a superhero movie, a Marvel movie. I forget which one it was, but they're always in all of these movies. You have the villain, you have the conflict, you have the disaster, and it's always the perfect situation for that superhero to show his divinity. And I feel like, is that what's going on? I don't feel divine in this. But really it is. It's that contrast is there so that we can come to see clearly the strength and the power and the perfection of our divinity to meet every situation. I'm just not enjoying it at the moment.
Well, we've got to change that. We've got to change it. I mean, look, we signed up for this, right? We signed up for this ride, just like you signed up all those eons ago to do your divine work as an engineer, okay, of humanity. And now you're here in this body, and you're here to experience the effect of your work from before. Okay. I mean, I wish for you to come into some sort of not acceptance in the way that this is the way it's going to be, but the acceptance that I'm just here. I'm only here, but I can go over here. And then I can get up here. And then I can be here, which is where I want to be. But right now, with your understanding that you're just down here, okay, and just kind of say, okay, I'm here. It sucks, but I'm going to still plug forward.
That's it. That's the key. See, because, and that's the thing is that, like you said, to say choosing love is one thing, but to actually do it in practice in your day-to-day life, in your humanness, is what we're all becoming masters at. Yeah.
I was just sharing with a friend of mine earlier today. She called me. We're in the process of renovating my bedroom suite, and I moved in here because all the dusty stuff that moved me out is hopefully finished, but it's not. I still have pink walls. I'm still bathed in pink. That's going to go away whenever we're done with everything else. But I was talking with her about my mirror in this situation, which is my mother, my shadow, as always coming in to remind me where my work is. And I was installing a ceiling fan. Okay, my brand new ceiling fan. I'm sitting there doing it myself. And she comes in and automatically reminds me that I'm female and I should have help, So God bless her. I reacted quite unholy, quite ungodlike or ungoddess-like. Can't you come in here and tell me I'm doing something good? Why is it I don't need a man? I've never needed man. I've always done everything right. And so I just like tumbled. I just tumbled way off of my Mount Olympus. And I just dived right down, and mom went away upset and I started to get upset. And I actually generated in that energy a situation where I had to call my son in because everything was just going to drop from the ceiling and it would have been a disaster. So talk about conscious manifestation or deliberate energetic manifestation, being in the energy of that. So I encountered my mother. I went through the situation where, the fucking thing was going to come off the roof now, got off the ceiling. And so I needed assistance. So that was a self-fulfilling prophecy right there. And so then after I did that, my blood sugar tanked. My body was shaking. I was like, I've got to stop for a minute. I paused. I went and made myself a smoothie. And then I had to take stock. I had to take stock of this because what I went through was awful. It was not experience. I want to do it again. And I had to say to myself, how can I look at this differently? And I had to see, what am I actually in control of, right? Which is what I went back to earlier. And the only thing I'm in control of is the perception that I have of my situation. And I cannot change my mother, cannot change how she views her daughter, because if it didn't happen before 95 years, it ain't going to happen after 95 years. I'm telling you that much. So what ended up happening was I took a pause. I calmed myself down, nourished my body because my body was reacting out of only having water and coffee. It's like 10:30 in the morning and I need a little bit more sustenance. So I added sustenance to the body, took stock of what I could control and what I couldn't control. And she went back to work. And she came back in again. And because of her nature and because of who she is, she said the same thing again. Shouldn't you do this with someone here? I'm afraid you're going to fall. And so I said, thank you for being concerned for me, but I've got this. I'm okay. And I thanked her for her concern. And I didn't fight her because she was concerned. I didn't fight her for whatever I put into her head, she had in her head. Yeah. Right? Because I'm judging her. I'm judging what she sees in me. Okay. As being a negative thing. So this is where it comes to when we're talking about that the divine nature is within us. Because everything starts and ends from our eyes. Everything starts and ends from our thoughts, which puts a great deal of bloody burden onto us. Right. It's a lot. It's a lot. Okay, so there's nothing to poo-poo here about what we are going through. This is a very, very tough and dense dimension.
It is. And honestly, I was talking to someone who was really conveying a sense that we made a mistake and that's what landed us here. Right. Mm-hmm. And what rose up in me was, it wasn't a mistake. It was courageous.
There you go.
It was our own knowledge of our own strength and perfection and our trust in it. We trusted our divinity enough to come here and forget, to immerse ourselves fully in that which is created unlike love. Yep. Imagine the faith that we had in our own divinity to make that leap. Mm-hmm. And we do get triggered. And here's the thing is when we are triggered, we are in an altered state of consciousness. Yep. The Anne-Marie that knew that her mother was just expressing in her own way concern wasn't actually the Anne-Marie that was talking.
Mm-hmm.
It was an Anne Marie that was still traumatized by some experience in which nothing she did was right in the eyes of her mother.
Yep.
And that aspect of you came forward to be felt and seen and heard,
Mm-hmm.
and was right there. You didn't have a second to acknowledge that aspect of you. It was just there, and it took over in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And when I strongly believe that when that happens, it's because that aspect of you is ready to be brought into love,
Mm-hmm.
and not shamed, not dismissed or denied, not seen as less than or shouldn't be,
Mm-hmm.
but to be like, wow, there's a part of me that's really hurting.
Yeah.
And can't be silent any longer, and has taken this opportunity to have a voice.
You're bringing up a really, really beautiful point. And that's the point of us acknowledging that our emotions, our experiences are not to be avoided.
Right.
We cannot bypass this ascension. This has to be felt, endured,
Yes.
and released.
Yes.
It has to be. We have to be able to look at these situations and forgive, because we're going to come back to forgiveness.
Yeah.
We have to first and foremost forgive us, forgive ourselves and our thoughts, and release the guilt that we hold. I mean, I was for quite a long time just focusing on a sense of guilt, a sense of how can I feel these emotions towards this woman that is my mirror, and how am I going to move forward out of these emotions? I was having another conversation with another dear friend of mine, and it was all about, I'm waiting for my life to begin.
Yeah.
She has situations in her life that are just keeping her in her spot. She's not free to do what she wants. We desire to be free. We desire to live without, in our
Limitless,
in
boundless.
our limitless nature. We
Yeah,
desire that because it is who we are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we're boundless, limitless spirit.
Exactly. So how do we, desiring this with everything that we have, not resent what's keeping us,
right,
what's keeping us down, let us say.
Yeah.
What's keeping us in this density.
Right.
And this is a big conversation.
Oh yeah.
This is a huge conversation.
Yeah. I think we're all to this point where we've had all these spiritual teachings that have been essentially ego shaming, that have been essentially human shaming.
Yeah.
In which we are told that there is that God expects us to be like him, and what's wrong with you that you're not like that. And that is so far from the truth. Yeah. That is so far from the truth. Forgiveness, that we have to remember what our purpose is. Our purpose is to bring love to separation. And the first step in that process is experience. And, these aspects of ourselves that are still in separation, that have been traumatized, that have been shoved into a closet, like you're the unwanted thing that I don't want to exist. Because you're holding me back. Because of you, I'm not going to ascend with everyone else. Because of you, I'm at risk for having to do another 25,000 years of suffering. I don't want you. So let me ask you this. What is the energy of separation? It's resistance.
Mhm.
That which we call separation is the manifestation of an energy called resistance. Resistance is density,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And if you think about source energy as water, because like water, it flows through channels. When we have resistance, it's like having a hose of water and then sticking your thumb in the hose, you know? And that your thumb's holding back most of it. A little bit's coming through to keep you, enough to keep you alive, but not enough for you to fully express yourself as divinity.
Mhm.
And so what happens is those aspects of us that are still in separation, we have resistance to. And so instead of love flowing to those aspects, we've cut off source to those aspects of us that need the most love because we're ashamed of them. We fear them. We see them as less than instead of seeing them as the work we came here to do. You know, we all were infants who have forgotten our true nature. And because of the nature of being infants, are totally open and sponges to our environment. And so we took on all the frequencies and the conditionings of this world, not in error,
Mhm.
in innocence.
Mhm.
And
Thank you.
then we live the first
Thank
parts
you.
of our lives expressing our conditioning, not expressing our divine nature, because we haven't come to that point in our development in which we have access to that yet.
Mhm.
We spend, most of us spend the first parts of our lives expressing our conditioning. And through that experience, we come to recognize that we have this other nature, we have these other desires. But there are parts of us that are so traumatized and so hurt and so dense, so painful, that are not having access to our divinity. Our only recourse was to shove them away from us.
Mm.
And so we've divided ourselves in and shoved aspects of ourselves away where they can't be heard, they can't be felt, they can't be seen.
Mm.
And so there's a 5-year-old, 7-year-old, 9-year-old, 13-year-old crying in the closet saying, I need to come out. Please love me.
Yeah.
And then when they come out, what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
Shame on you.
Mm-hmm.
You're not the divinity that I've learned about.
Mm-hmm.
You've shamed me. You're disgracing me. You're proving that I'm not divine.
Mm-hmm.
You're the proof of everything I don't want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of allowing love to flow to those aspects of us, what do? Is we say, shut up. I don't want to hear you. You don't sound the way I want to be.
It's like you're faulting the child for being a child.
Exactly.
You can't do that. You can't do that.
No. And it's so cruel and it's so re-traumatizing. And it's like what Aten Ra said. He said, beware of the God you worship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you believe, think about this for a second. You're holding in your mind that the infinite creator, the source of all love, wants to destroy those aspects of you, hates and feels shame about the existence of those aspects, wants nothing to do with those aspects. What is the God that you are worshiping? You're, in fact, all you're doing is embodying in a spiritual way the conditioning of your youth. You're assigning God the qualities of your parents, of your teachers, of our government, of that entity that we created in the absence of love. You are assigning to. You're saying, okay, if there's any part of you that isn't divine perfection, you're going to be smited or smoked or whatever it is. Those are old paradigms. Those are old beliefs,
right,
that we are awakening from.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a lot of ego shaming in the spiritual community.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of the sense of, separation is error, that you've made a mistake. That's why you're here. You're suffering because you don't see it right. You're suffering because you've chosen the wrong perspective. None of that is true.
Mm-hmm.
Suffering is the cry for love. When we embody these dense energies, when we feel them, when we experience them through our lives, we are doing so because Source wants to come into relationship with those aspects of Source, mm-hmm. so that love can flow. And so when we get triggered, it's an aspect of us coming forward with force, mm-hmm. for the purpose of being seen, felt, heard, understood. Why? Because they don't want to be separate anymore. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the only answer is to be unconditionally present with those aspects of ourselves, because, it's not to correct those aspects. It's not to say, well, you should have a different perspective. Mm-hmm. You should feel differently. That's not loving. You don't do that to a child. Mm-hmm. You hold a child, you comfort a child. You know that once that love flows to that child in your arms, when they're ready, they're going to get down and go play. Mm-hmm. And those aspects, when we're triggered, it's those aspects of us that we have left outside of love coming forward with force, mm-hmm. so that we can do that very thing.
Mm-hmm. What an incredible perspective on who we are as incarnate beings, who we are as humanity. Sonia, you have shed light on this situation that I have never, ever considered. So I am eternally grateful for you in my life. And you have brought forth aspects of this journey that, like I said, I would never have been able to understand the why of why we go through all that we go through. So my sweet and beautiful and amazing sister, I thank you for spending this time with me on a day when you could have done other things.
So, well, thank you so much. Thank you for reaching out to me and for allowing me to join with you in this way.
Absolutely.
I would not have spoken up and stepped forward on my own.
I hope this is not the last time. This will not be. I'm telling you, it's not going to be the last time that we communicate. And I hope that maybe further down the road, you can talk about the other side of the coin.
Oh yeah,
Love you to talk about the other side of the peaks of your experience, and relay those with us. And I am honored to have been given you this forum to express where you are in your journey, because you definitely are one of the most intimately connected person with spirit that I know.
Thank you.
And I'm just very honored and humbled, and I love you, love you, love you. And
I
thank
love
you
you
so
too.
much.
Thank
So
you.
if anybody wanted to get in touch with you, how would they get in touch with you?
How about we put my email address in the description,
Okay, I will do that.
and they can contact me by email and just go from there.
Thank you so very, very much. And you know how to get in touch with me, AnnMarieTheArtOfHealing.com. I have called this beautiful soul on many an occasion when I was at the bottom of the valley, and she has been there and given me beautiful and great and healing insight. So I encourage you to reach out. All right, thank you for spending time with us all. Everyone who has made it to the end, I thank you again. And this is Anne Marie of the Art of Healing, and another episode of Conversations with Anne Marie. Be well, be blessed. Love you.